years later, he was facing the existential threat of Super Buu. Gohan returned seemingly transformed, and the Elder Kai had unlocked his potential, and we thought that yet again, Gohan was going his own path, and he was finally, again, the strongest warrior in the universe. He had immense strength, and apparently it was integrated without the prerequisite of rage that he had against Cell. And his initial confrontation with Buu, he was radiating with confidence, smiling and control, easily dodging and countering Super Buu. He was completely in control. This is what we think. However, his declaration upon arrival said to Buu was, "Fight you? No, I want to kill you." And guys, you know they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, sometimes 2 sentences are worth 1,000 words, because this statement is very crucial. When you analyze this psychologically, it represents Gohan's consciously attempting to adopt a mindset that he now understood was necessary. He learned from his mistakes against Cell, and he was directly learning from the catastrophic hesitation he had against Cell. He intellectually recognized, because Gohan is a scholar and is the smartest fighter there, he recognized the need for the decisive lethal action. And this was Gohan trying to fake it till he made it. However, this forced resolve soon revealed its fragility, leading the second psychological breakdown that Gohan encountered. His apparent confidence masked an underlying psychological vulnerability, best understood through the lens of cognitive dissonance and the resulting behavioral adaptations. So simply, guys, I think we all know what cognitive dissonance is, but this describes a significant mental discomfort experienced when an individual holds 2 or more contradictory beliefs, or 2 or more contradictory values, or even attitudes, or is confident with information that conflict with his existing cognitions. And to reduce this uncomfortable dissonance, individuals are motivated to change conflicting elements or rationalize their behavior. So you might ask, how can we associate this with Gohan? How did Gohan suffer from cognitive dissonance while he was fighting Buu? He seemed so in control. He seemed so confident. He was radiant. He was looking good. He was beef. He was piecing Super Buu up. Well, upon facing Buu, Gohan experienced his dissonance. And how did he experience his dissonance? He held cognition 1, based on past experiences, mainly Cell, and the current threat. I must kill Buu swiftly and decisively, but this conflicted directly with cognition 2. My core nature finds killing abhorrent, and controlled dominance feels more aligned with my values. I don't want to kill. I just like sparring, I like fighting, I like beating people up for fun, but I don't want to kill. So he was holding these simultaneously, and this created a significant psychological tension. His statement, "I want to kill you," was an attempt to verbally align with cognition 1 and go straight away from cognition 2. So this leads us into the behavioral compromise and the superficial resolve. When faced with cognitive dissonance that cannot be easily resolved by changing core beliefs, individual may adapt a behavioral compromise. And these are actions that attempt to partially satisfy both conflicting cognitions simultaneously. Superficial resolve refers to a stated intention or outward display of determination that isn't deeply or yet integrated with the individual's core personality or instincts, making it potentially fragile under pressure. So Gohan's actions following his declarations of "fight you, no, I want to kill you," exemplify the behavioral compromise. And this was aimed at reducing the cognitive dissonance he was feeling at the time. Instead of immediate annihilations, which fully aligns with cognition number 1, he engaged in a prolonged demonstration of dominance, partially satisfying cognition number 1 because he will still defeat Buu, but he will not annihilate him and humiliate him. while feeling closer to cognition number 2, preference for controlled fighting. So this reveals the superficial resolve that he had. The killer instinct was a conscious overlay. It was not yet instinctual, because he had just adopted this fake it till you make it mindset. The evidence is the extending beating and lecturing of Buu without finishing the blow. You would think that he would have learned from Cell, and yet he did. He did in some way. He learned from his mistakes, but he faced a new psychological challenge, and this delay was the compromise born from his internal conflict. It was into the window created by his psychological vulnerability and behavioral delay that Buu struck a nerve. Facing defeat, Buu sensed Gohan far and far away. He had concocted a plan. He was going to be defeated by Gotenks Super Saiyan 3. Gotenks even said, it's time to finish him off now. It's time, but he ran out of time. Gohan played around too much, and we cannot blame Gotenks, blame him or them. They're kids, so we can understand this. They finally had this Super Saiyan strength. They were unbeatable, and they had this arrogance within them, and Gotenks was about to finish Buu off once and for all. However, Buu sensed Gotenks' fusion times was short, and Buu, despite everything we think of him, demonstrated desperate ingenuity. And using this precious time that Gohan provided to Buu, he gave Buu the opportunity. Buu detaches a piece of himself, setting an absorption trap. He absorbs Gotenks and Piccolo. And this is where the tides completely turn. And then Buu's plan here stemmed from observation and desperation for power, hinged entirely on the opportunity that Gohan's hesitation created. And this was the impaired executive function and the cognitive overload and the emotional shock. Similar to the impairment he was feeling under extreme emotion, these executive functions can also be severely disrupted by cognitive overload. You know, guys, when we go to, like, a small example is when we go to a store and you go to your favorite store and there's just too many to choose from. You don't know what to choose. You're like, oh my god, this is way too much information. I wish someone could just pick for me. Well, it's the same thing here. When the brain receives too much critical information or too many demanding stimuli, simultaneously hindering its ability to process information efficiently, this intense emotional shock, like unexpected trauma or grief, can cause a temporary shutdown of the processes and freezing the cognitive process of the brain. So Gohan, after he saw the absorption of his brother and his mentor, his best friend, his uncle, this delivered a massive emotional shock that cannot be denied, and this struck Gohan at his core, and he was still this fragile person that he was while he was fighting Cell. This event created extreme cognitive overload. He had to process the emotional trauma and the sudden drastic increase in Buu's power and tactical capability. He officially became Buu-Tanks, possessing Gotenks' power and Piccolo's intelligence. It was over. It was over. And then Goku came with a sudden appearance with the Potara fusion. This confluence of factors completely overwhelmed Gohan. He was not able to process. Thanks to Dende, he was still able to stay alive, but this led to the impaired executive function. This result was a visible decision paralysis, freezing and failing to react defensively or secure the Potara earrings, looking utterly overwhelmed in the face of the appearance of his dad, of the new solution of the emotional trauma of his brother being absorbed, the emotional trauma of his mentor being absorbed, and the emotional trauma and the humiliation of the failure that he yet again made the same mistakes against Buu. So ultimately, this failure traces back to the internal conflict. Buu's successful maneuver, enabled by Gohan's delay and the subsequent targeted psychological assaults, shattered the fragile fake warrior resolve by striking Gohan's genuine human attachment. The killer instinct Gohan attempted to project proved insufficient. It was not mature yet enough. He was not ripe enough. It was integrated when his core values were attacked. This led to paralysis and defeat and absorption.